the first time I saw Michael Cooper. He was standing in the elementary school art room, holding his daughter Emma's hand like it was the most precious thing in the world. I remember thinking how his eyes seemed to carry both strength and sadness, a combination that made my heart skip a beat. As the new art teacher at Riverside Elementary, I was used to meeting parents during our annual art showcase. But something about Michael was different. Emma, his 8-year-old daughter, had created a beautiful watercolor painting of a family. 3 figures stood under a rainbow: a tall man, a little girl, and a woman with a question mark for a face. When Michael saw the painting, his smile faltered for just a moment. But he quickly recovered, praising Emma's choice of colors and technique. I didn't know then about Rebecca, about the betrayal that had torn their family apart, or how this quiet man standing before me would change my life forever. That was 2 years ago. And now, as I sit in my classroom after hours, grading student artwork and thinking about how life changes, I can't help but marvel at the journey that brought us here. The other teachers had filled me in gradually about the Cooper family drama. Rebecca Mitchell, the ex-wife, had left Michael and Emma for a wealthy executive named James. "Such a shame," Mrs. Thompson, the 3rd-grade teacher, had said. They seemed like the perfect family. Michael built his tech company from scratch, gave Rebecca everything she wanted. I tried not to listen to the gossip. But in a small town outside Boston, everyone's story eventually becomes public knowledge. I focused instead on Emma, who showed remarkable talent in my art class. Despite the sadness that sometimes clouded her bright blue eyes, she would stay after class sometimes, helping me clean brushes and organize supplies, telling me about her weekend with her dad, or the new coding game he was teaching her. "My dad's super smart," she'd say proudly. "He makes computers do amazing things. But he gets lonely sometimes. I can tell when he sits in his office late at night." Those innocent observations would tug at my heartstrings, making me wonder about the man who seemed to pour all his love into his daughter, while asking nothing for himself. Our first real conversation happened during parent-teacher conferences. Michael arrived early, as usual, dressed in a casual blue button-down that matched his eyes. "Ms. Walker," he said, extending his hand, "Emma talks about your class all the time. Art has become her favorite subject." "Please, call me Sarah," I replied, trying to ignore the warmth of his hand in mine. "Emma's a wonderful student. She puts so much emotion into her work." We talked about Emma's progress, but somehow the conversation drifted to his work in technology, my passion for teaching art, and our shared love of Thai food. Before either of us realized it, an hour had passed, and the next parent was waiting outside. Michael looked almost disappointed as he stood to leave. "Thank you for everything you do for Emma," he said. "She needs good role models in her life, especially now." I wanted to say more, to somehow acknowledge the pain I saw behind his smile, but I kept it professional, simply nodding and wishing him well. Weeks passed, and I found myself looking forward to seeing Michael during school pickup times. We'd exchange small waves and brief hellos, each interaction feeling like a tiny spark in an otherwise routine day. Then came the school's annual fundraiser, a casual evening of art and music, where students showcased their talents and parents opened their checkbooks for a good cause. I was supervising the art display when Emma ran up to me, excitement radiating from her face. "Ms. Walker, come see what Dad and I made." She grabbed my hand, pulling me toward their display table, where Michael stood next to a remarkable creation. A small robot that could draw patterns with colored markers. "Emma designed the patterns," Michael explained, his eyes shining with pride. "I just helped with the programming. We call it ArtBot," Emma announced. "Dad says it's a perfect mix of science and art. Just like you too." I felt my cheeks flush at her innocent observation. And when I glanced at Michael, I saw a similar tinge of color on his face. The evening turned into a success, with ArtBot becoming the star attraction. As parents and children gathered around their table, I watched Michael and Emma work as a team, explaining their creation with shared enthusiasm. Later, as the crowd thinned and volunteers began cleaning up, Michael approached me with 2 cups of coffee. "You look like you could use this," he said, offering me one of the cups. "You're a lifesaver," I replied gratefully, taking a sip of the perfectly sweetened coffee. "How did you know how I take it?" "Emma mentioned it," he said with a slight smile. "She notices everything about her favorite teacher." We stood in comfortable silence, watching the last few families leave, when Michael cleared his throat nervously. "Sarah, I was wondering." But before he could finish, a commotion at the entrance caught our attention. Rebecca had arrived, fashionably late and impeccably dressed, with James Anderson by her side. The atmosphere in the room instantly changed. Emma, who had been happily packing up ArtBot, froze in place, her eyes fixed on her mother. "Mom," she said uncertainly. "You came?" Rebecca swept across the room, her designer heels clicking against the floor. "Of course, sweetie. I wouldn't miss your big night. James and I just had a dinner meeting that ran late." I watched Michael's jaw tighten, but his voice remained calm for Emma's sake. "The showcase ended 15 minutes ago, Rebecca." "Well, we're here now," James interjected, his arm possessively around Rebecca's waist. "Better late than never, right, princess?" Emma just nodded, but I could see her shrinking into herself, the confidence from earlier evaporating. Michael stepped forward, placing himself between Emma and the late arrivals. "Emma needs to get home. It's a school night." "Don't be difficult, Michael," Rebecca sighed. "I barely get to see her as it is." "That's your choice, not mine," Michael replied quietly. "You have scheduled visitation days. This isn't one of them." I busied myself with cleaning nearby tables, trying to give them privacy, while staying close enough in case Emma needed support. The tension in the air was palpable, as Rebecca's perfectly manicured hand reached for Emma's shoulder. "Mommy misses you, sweetie. Maybe you could come stay with us this weekend?" James just bought a new pool table for the penthouse. Emma looked at her father, uncertainty written across her face. Michael's expression remained neutral, letting Emma make her own choice. I have a science fair project due Monday," Emma said softly. "Dad's helping me build a solar system model." I saw the flash of hurt in Rebecca's eyes, quickly replaced by anger. "Of course he is," she said coldly. "Always the perfect father, aren't you, Michael?" James tugged at Rebecca's arm. "Come on, babe. Let's go." Obviously, we're not wanted here. As they turned to leave, Rebecca's gaze fell on me, and her eyes narrowed slightly. You must be the art teacher Emma talks about. I nodded professionally. Ms. Walker. Nice to meet you. I'm sure it is, she replied, her tone suggesting anything but pleasure. How convenient that you're here so late. Michael stepped forward again, his voice carrying a warning edge. That's enough, Rebecca. After they left, the room felt lighter somehow, as if a storm cloud had passed. Emma hugged her father tightly, and I pretended not to notice the tears that threatened to fall from her eyes. As we finished cleaning up, Michael helped me carry supplies back to my classroom. I'm sorry you had to witness that, he said quietly. Rebecca has a talent for making dramatic entrances. You handled it well, I assured him. Emma's lucky to have you. He paused at my classroom door, running a hand through his dark hair. About what I was going to ask earlier. Yes, I said, my heart beating a little faster. Would you like to have dinner with me sometime? Just us? I know it might be complicated, with me being Emma's father and you being her teacher. But... Yes, I interrupted, surprising myself with how quickly I answered. I'd like that very much. His smile then was different from any I'd seen before. Lighter, hopeful, like the sun breaking through clouds. We agreed on Friday night, and as I watched him and Emma leave, I felt something shift inside me, like pieces of a puzzle falling into place. I didn't know then how that simple yes would change everything, how it would lead to both joy and challenges, or how Rebecca's appearance at the fundraiser was just the beginning of the storms to come. But standing there in my classroom, surrounded by children's artwork, and the lingering warmth of Michael's smile, I knew one thing for certain. Some risks are worth taking, even when the path ahead seems uncertain. That night, as I drove home, I thought about Emma's family painting, the question mark where a mother's face should be. I wondered if someday that space might be filled with something more concrete, something real and lasting. But for now, I had a date to look forward to, and a feeling that life was about to get very interesting indeed. Our first date was at a small Italian restaurant, tucked away in the north end of Boston, far enough from our neighborhood to avoid prying eyes and wagging tongues. Michael looked different outside of school, more relaxed in dark jeans and a charcoal sweater. His smile easier when it wasn't guarded by the walls he'd built to protect Emma. I haven't done this in a while, he admitted, fidgeting with his water glass. Dating, I mean. Not since Rebecca. Me neither, I confessed. My last relationship ended 2 years ago. He wanted me to give up teaching for a corporate job. Michael's eyes met mine across the table. I'd never ask you to give up something you love. I see how passionate you are about teaching art. How you light up when talking about your students. The conversation flowed naturally after that, like a river finding its path to the sea. We talked about everything and nothing. His growing tech company, my dreams of starting an art therapy program, our shared love of old movies and Thai food. But when the topic turned to Emma, I saw the pain flash across his face. She's so strong, he said softly. Stronger than she should have to be at her age. She gets that from you, I replied. reaching across the table to touch his hand. You've given her stability when her world was shaking. His fingers intertwined with mine. And something electric passed between us. A current of understanding and possibility. That first date turned into weekly dinners. Careful at first to keep our relationship private. Away from school gossip and judgmental eyes. But Emma, perceptive as always, noticed the change in her father. You smile more now, she told him one day, while I was helping them bake cookies. Like you used to, before Mom left. Michael hugged her close, meeting my eyes over her head, with a look that made my heart flutter. We were building something beautiful. Something real and honest. When Rebecca decided to shatter our peace, it started with small things. Showing up unannounced at school events. Calling Michael at odd hours for emergency conversations. Posting old family photos on social media. With captions about missing her perfect life. Then came the day. She spotted Michael and me having lunch at a cafe near the school. Her heels clicked against the sidewalk, like warning shots as she approached our table. Well, isn't this cozy, she said, her voice dripping with false sweetness. The devoted father and the artistic teacher. How very Hallmark Channel. Michael's hand tightened around mine. Rebecca, this isn't the place. Oh. Where is the place, Michael? Should I schedule an appointment? To discuss you dating my daughter's teacher? I started to stand, not wanting to cause a scene. But Michael held my hand firmly. Sarah is an important part of our lives now. Emma adores her. Rebecca's perfectly painted smile faltered. Emma has a mother. She doesn't need a replacement. No one's trying to replace you, Rebecca. I said quietly, finding my voice. Emma loves you. That won't change. She turned her cold gaze on me. How noble of you to say so. Tell me, Sarah, does it make you feel good? Playing house with my family? That's enough, Michael's voice was steel. You gave up the right to comment on my life. When you chose James over your family. Rebecca's face flushed red. James and I are having problems, she admitted. I've been thinking about what's best for Emma. Michael stood then, his chair scraping against the floor. Don't use our daughter as an excuse to create chaos. When your perfect new life isn't so perfect anymore. As Rebecca stormed away, I felt the tremor in Michael's hand. Saw the storm of emotions in his eyes. I'm sorry, he whispered. I never wanted you to deal with this. Hey, I squeezed his hand. I'm not going anywhere. We're in this together. That night, as we sat on his back porch, watching Emma practice cartwheels in the yard, Michael turned to me with serious eyes. I need you to know something, he said. What we have, what we're building here. It's real for me. It's not about replacing Rebecca. Or finding someone to help with Emma. It's about you, Sarah. Just you. I felt tears prick my eyes as I leaned into his embrace. It's real for me too, I whispered. All of it. But Rebecca's words had planted seeds of doubt that would bloom into thorny problems. The school principal called me into her office to discuss professional boundaries. Parents began whispering at pickup time. Even some of my colleagues started treating me differently. Through it all, Michael and Emma remained my anchors. We created our own traditions. Sunday morning pancake experiments. Afternoon art projects in the backyard. Movie nights with popcorn fights. Emma started calling me S instead of Ms. Walker outside of school. A small gesture that felt like acceptance. One evening, as I helped her with art homework, she looked up at me with serious eyes. "Can I tell you a secret?" she asked. "Of course, sweetie. Sometimes I wish you were my real mom." "Is that bad? Does it make me a terrible person?" I pulled her into a tight hug, my heart breaking and healing all at once. "No, Emma. It doesn't make you terrible at all. Your mom loves you very much. And so do I. You have room in your heart for both of us." She nodded against my shoulder, then pulled back with a mischievous smile. "Dad loves you too, you know. I can tell by the way he looks at you. Like you're his favorite painting in the world." I laughed, wiping away a stray tear. "Your dad is pretty special too." But our bubble of happiness was about to be tested in ways none of us expected. James had left Rebecca, trading her in for a younger model, just as she had once traded Michael for him. Now she was back, claiming she'd changed, wanting to rebuild her family. And she was willing to fight dirty to get what she wanted, even if it meant destroying everything Michael and I had built. The storm was coming, and all we could do was hold on tight and trust in the foundation we'd laid with love and truth. As I watched Emma and Michael laughing together in the kitchen that evening, I made a silent promise. I would fight for this family we'd created, this love we'd found, no matter what Rebecca threw our way. Because some things are worth fighting for. And this was everything. The next morning brought news that would test that promise in ways I never imagined. Rebecca had filed a complaint with the school board, claiming I was using my position to manipulate her daughter and destroy her family. The battle for our happiness had officially begun, and I was ready to stand my ground, not just for Michael and Emma, but for the future we all deserved. A future built on love, not betrayal. On truth, not manipulation. On the family we choose, not the ones that abandon us. The war Rebecca started would change all our lives, but not in the way she expected. Sometimes the hardest battles lead us exactly where we need to be. And I was exactly where I belonged, with Michael and Emma, ready to face whatever came next. Together. The school board hearing was set for a Tuesday morning, cold and gray like the anxiety in my stomach. I sat in the conference room, surrounded by stern faces and shuffling papers, while Rebecca painted me as a predator who had targeted her vulnerable ex-husband and impressionable daughter. Ms. Walker abused her position of trust. Rebecca's voice quivered with practiced emotion. She saw a broken family and took advantage of the situation. Michael sat beside me, his hand steady on mine under the table, as he testified about our relationship, about how I'd helped Emma flourish, about the positive changes in their lives. But it was Emma's testimony that changed everything. She walked into that room, back straight, chin up, looking so much older than her years. "Ms. Walker makes me feel safe," she said simply. "She never tried to replace my mom. She just loved me and Dad. Exactly as we were. Rebecca's face tightened. As Emma continued speaking, describing the art therapy sessions that helped her process her feelings, the way I'd encouraged her to maintain a relationship with her mother, the stability I'd brought to their home. The board deliberated for an hour, but in the end, they found no evidence of misconduct. I could keep my job, though they recommended I transfer Emma to another art teacher's class to avoid any appearance of impropriety. As we left the hearing, Rebecca caught up with us in the parking lot. "This isn't over," she hissed. "I'll file for full custody. No judge will let Emma live with a father who exposes her to such an inappropriate relationship." Michael's voice was tired but firm. "Haven't you caused enough damage, Rebecca? When will it be enough?" She faltered then, something breaking in her perfect facade. "James is getting married," she whispered, "to his 24-year-old assistant." "I lost everything, Michael." "Everything?" "No," Michael replied softly. "You gave it away. There's a difference." That night, as Emma slept upstairs, Michael and I sat on the porch swing, processing the day's events. "I'm sorry," he said suddenly. "You shouldn't have to deal with all this." I turned to face him, taking both his hands in mine. "Listen to me, Michael Cooper. I love you. I love Emma. I love the life we're building. Rebecca can throw whatever she wants at us, but she can't change that." His kiss tasted like promise and hope, like a future worth fighting for. But Rebecca wasn't bluffing. About the custody battle. The papers arrived 3 days later, filled with accusations and demands. She wanted full custody, claiming Michael's relationship with me was damaging Emma's emotional well-being. She had a new house in the suburbs, a stable job, and a more appropriate environment for Emma. The legal fees started piling up, but Michael refused to back down. "Emma needs stability," he said. "She needs her home, her school, her friends. I won't let Rebecca uproot her life again." The custody hearing was scheduled for summer, which gave us 3 months to prepare our case. During that time, something unexpected happened. Rebecca's perfect mask began to crack. She missed 2 scheduled visits with Emma, claiming work emergencies. When she did show up, she was distracted, agitated, checking her phone constantly. Then came the night. She showed up at our door at midnight, mascara streaking down her face. "James got married today," she sobbed. "I saw the pictures on Instagram. They honeymooned in Bali, where he always promised to take me." Emma, awakened by the commotion, appeared at the top of the stairs. "Mom," she called uncertainly. "Are you okay?" Rebecca looked up, seeing her daughter's concern, and something seemed to break inside her. "No, baby," she whispered. "Mommy's not okay. Mommy hasn't been okay for a long time." I guided Emma back to bed, while Michael helped Rebecca to the couch. When I returned, she was crying into her hands, all pretense of perfection gone. "I ruined everything," she said. "I threw away my family for a man who never really loved me. And now I'm trying to ruin your happiness too, because I can't stand seeing you move on while my life falls apart." Michael sat across from her, his face a mix of compassion and caution. "It's not too late to stop this, Rebecca. We can work out a reasonable custody arrangement. Emma needs both her parents. But she needs us to be civil. To put her needs first." Rebecca looked at me then. Really looked at me. Perhaps for the first time. "You're good with her," she said quietly. "I see how she lights up around you. I've been so jealous of that. But maybe it's not such a bad thing for Emma to have another person loving her." The custody hearing was cancelled. The next week, Rebecca withdrew her petition, agreeing to maintain the current arrangement, with some adjustments for holidays. It wasn't an instant transformation. Rebecca still had moments of difficulty, still struggled with seeing Michael and me together. But she began to focus more on healing herself, started seeing a therapist, and slowly rebuilt her relationship with Emma on more honest terms. As summer turned to fall, our life settled into a new rhythm. I transferred to teach art at the high school across town, which meant I could still be part of the school community without any conflict of interest. Emma joined the science club and started taking advanced art classes, blooming into herself more each day. And Michael asked me to marry him on a quiet Sunday morning while we were painting the kitchen yellow. No fancy proposal, no elaborate plans, just a simple question, asked with paint-stained hands and a heart full of love. "Yes," I said, pulling him close, not caring about the paint smearing across our clothes. Emma found us like that, laughing and crying and covered in yellow, and threw herself into our embrace. "Finally," she exclaimed. "I've been waiting forever." When we told Rebecca, she surprised us with her genuine congratulations. "Be happy," she said softly. "That's all I want now. For all of us to be happy." As I stand here now, watching Michael and Emma set up for our backyard wedding, I think about the journey that brought us here. About how love isn't always what we expect it to be. How families can break and reform. How healing comes in its own time. Rebecca will be here today, sitting with Emma during the ceremony, both of them wearing yellow dresses, because Emma insisted it was the color of new beginnings. And as I prepare to walk down the aisle, to join my life officially with Michael's, I know that our story isn't perfect, but it's real. It's about second chances and unexpected joy, about choosing love, even when it's complicated, about building something beautiful from broken pieces. Most of all, it's about family. Not just the one you're born into, but the one you choose, the one you fight for, the one you build with every act of love and every leap of faith. And